Okay, so you want to own a courier business. Buy a van, hire a driver, charge per package, and watch the cash roll in. A customer hands you a box at point A, you drop it off at point B, and somewhere in the middle, you collect a neat, predictable fee. It sounds almost insultingly simple, a transaction so basic that human civilization was executing primitive versions of it long before we had paved highways or combustion engines. And yet, the courier and delivery services market in the United States alone generated a staggering $195 billion in revenue. Not million billion. $195 billion of consumer and corporate spending. But here is the brutal reality that no franchise broker or polished YouTube guru will ever tell you. The vast majority of independent operators fighting for a slice of that $195 billion pie are surviving on profit margins so razor-thin that a single bad quarter, a sudden spike in diesel prices, or a cluster of failed deliveries can erase an entire year's accumulated profits. In fact, many don't survive a single bad quarter at all. That massive, treacherous canyon between how ridiculously easy the concept looks from the outside and how financially ruthless the economics are on the inside is precisely what we are going to tear apart today. Before you spend a single dollar of your capital, buy your first vehicle, or sign a depot lease, you need to understand what a courier business actually is at its core. It is not a transportation business. That sounds completely counterintuitive, so stay with me. What a courier company actually sells is not the physical act of moving a cardboard box from one zip code to another. What you are selling is a guarantee. The absolute ironclad guarantee that the package will arrive on time, completely undamaged, at the exact correct doorstep, every single day, regardless of whether diesel prices jumped 30% overnight, whether 3 of your key drivers called in sick this morning, or whether a snowstorm just paralyzed the interstate. Your product is reliability. The multi-$1,000 cargo van sitting in your driveway is nothing more than a depreciating tool you use to deliver that promise. Every operational decision you make, every route you map, every driver you hire, and every contract line item you negotiate either fortifies that guarantee or silently bleeds your business to death. Let's break down the exact math of how that happens. Let's start at the absolute baseline, the absolute smallest version of a courier business. One driver, one cargo van, servicing a single local territory. To launch that micro-operation in the United States, you need anywhere between $30,000 and $75,000. That cash outlay covers a used vehicle, basic commercial auto insurance, local licensing paperwork, and enough initial working capital to keep fuel in the tank until your first invoices get paid. At that micro scale, $30,000 to $75,000 sounds manageable. But here is the structural trap. At that scale, you do not own a business. You are simply a self-employed delivery driver with a custom magnet slapped onto the side of a van. You have zero redundancy. If your transmission blows out on a Tuesday morning, your business is instantly offline. But your insurance premiums and lease payments keep ticking. You have zero pricing power when a commercial client demands a 15% discount, and you have absolutely no ability to compete on price or scale against legacy carriers who amortize their fixed overhead across tens of millions of packages every single day. To build an enterprise that actually functions as a sustainable business, something that can secure corporate logistics contracts, weather an operational crisis, and generate real equity, you need a fleet. And the moment you transition from one van to a fleet, the financial mathematics change violently. Let's look at a modest 10-van commercial fleet. A brand new commercial cargo van like a Ford Transit or Mercedes-Benz Sprinter retails between $25,000 and $50,000 depending on roof height, payload capacity, and upfitting. For a fleet of 10 vans, you are staring down $250,000 to $500,000 in raw vehicle acquisition costs before you have hired your first employee, bought a single gallon of diesel, or printed a single tracking label. Now, You might think you can outsmart this outlay by purchasing used, high-mileage fleet vehicles. But in commercial logistics, a used van is a ticking financial time bomb. A delivery van idling in a repair shop isn't just generating a $2,000 mechanics bill, it is actively burning cash every hour it sits immobile. Its commercial insurance premiums are still due, driver wages are still owed, depot rent doesn't stop, and furious corporate clients are blowing up your phone because their delivery windows were missed. Then comes commercial fleet insurance. Do not confuse this with your personal auto policy. Commercial vehicle insurance for an active delivery van averages between $1,500 and $3,000 per vehicle per year in the US. For a 10-van fleet, that is an upfront annual drain of $15,000 to $30,000 before a single package enters your cargo bay. On top of that, state-mandated workers' compensation insurance for high-risk delivery drivers adds another $190 to $260 per month per employee. And then come the regulatory gatekeepers that novice operators completely forget to budget for. Crossing state lines or handling commercial freight requires operating authority. You need a Motor Carrier Authority number from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, and a Department of Transportation (DOT) registration. If you operate in the United Kingdom, running a commercial fleet requires a formal operator's license from the Traffic Commissioner's Office. None of these approvals arrive quickly, and none of them are free. Fines for operating without proper federal authority start at $10,000 per violation in the US and compound exponentially during roadside audits. Add it all up. Before your first driver turns an ignition key, before a single cardboard box is scanned into your system, you have burned through $300,000 to $600,000 in capital assets, $15,000 to $30,000 in annual commercial insurance, and thousands more in regulatory compliance. And you haven't paid a single dollar in driver salaries yet. That is the non-negotiable cost just to exist in this industry. Now that you have paid the cost to exist, let's talk about the cost to actually operate day in and day out. The single largest, most relentless recurring expense in a courier business is not diesel fuel, nor is it vehicle depreciation or depot leases. It is labor. Entry-level delivery drivers in the US currently earn a base wage between $18 and $25 per hour, working for independent and regional operators. On paper, $18 an hour looks reasonable for a business model generating daily delivery fees. But calculating your business model on base wages is one of the fastest ways to land in bankruptcy court. You must calculate the fully loaded cost of labor. Packages do not stop moving on weekends, holidays, or during peak seasonal surges. Your drivers will routinely log overtime hours, factor in mandatory federal and state payroll taxes, factor in employer workers' comp contributions, factor in employer contributions toward healthcare benefits, because if you do not offer comprehensive healthcare, your most reliable, experienced drivers will instantly leave you for a national carrier that does. Driver turnover is one of the most destructive hidden profit killers in logistics. Every time an experienced driver quits recruiting, vetting, and training, a replacement costs thousands of dollars in lost productivity and spikes your delivery failure rate while the rookie learns the geography. When you aggregate base wages, overtime, payroll taxes, healthcare, and workers' comp, an $18 per hour driver actually costs your business between $25 and $30 per hour in fully loaded operational reality. Do the math for a 10-van fleet. 10 full-time drivers working a standard 40-hour workweek at $30 fully loaded per hour cost your business roughly $250,000 to $300,000 annually in driver wages alone. And remember, that $300,000 payroll only puts drivers behind wheels. It doesn't pay for your chief dispatcher, your fleet mechanic, your warehouse workers, or the customer service manager who handles screaming clients at 9 p.m. when a high-priority package gets misrouted. To see where this labor dynamic scales at the macro level, Look at what unfolded with United Parcel Service in 2023. UPS negotiated a historic labor agreement with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, representing roughly 340,000 workers. UPS committed to approximately $30 billion in new compensation and benefit costs over a 5-year contract. Under this agreement, top-tier UPS delivery drivers earn up to $49 per hour in direct base wages. When you combine their base salary, healthcare coverage, and employer pension contributions, a veteran UPS driver's total compensation package reaches an incredible $170,000 per year. You are not UPS. You don't have a multi-billion-dollar global logistics network, but here is your problem. You are recruiting from the exact same labor pool. Every seasoned driver who interviews for a job at your 10-van fleet knows precisely what the industry benchmark looks like. They know that full-time careers at legacy unionized carriers offer $170,000 in total compensation. That reality exerts relentless upward pressure on your payroll, squeezing your operating margins tighter with every passing year. Right behind labor comes fuel, the operational expense that stalks your fleet every single mile, every single day, completely beyond your ability to control or predict. Fuel typically consumes between 15% and 25% of total operating expenses for an active delivery fleet. For 10 cargo vans executing full daily routes 50 weeks a year, every single $1.00 increase per gallon in national diesel prices injects tens of thousands of dollars in unexpected, unbudgeted operating costs straight into your balance sheet. Legacy national carriers solved this volatility long ago through a sophisticated contractual tool, the fuel surcharge. A fuel surcharge is a dynamic percentage-based fee added to every single package shipment, adjusted on a weekly cycle based on the national average diesel prices published by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA. When global energy markets spike and diesel goes up at the pump, the surcharge automatically escalates. The national carrier never absorbs the oil shock. It passes 100% of the cost increase straight to the end customer. By mid-2025, FedEx ground fuel surcharges range from 19.5% to over 21% of base shipping rates, with UPS tracking at identical levels. In fact, UPS's annual financial reporting revealed that dynamic fuel surcharges generated an additional $282 million in pure revenue due to what executives termed revenue quality actions. Translate that, corporate. Speak into plain English. Fuel surcharges are no longer just cost recovery mechanisms for giant carriers. They have been weaponized as primary profit expansion tools. And what do small independent courier operators do? They make the single most lethal structural mistake in commercial logistics. They quote flat, fixed delivery rates to win clients. They lock themselves into 2-year commercial contracts at fixed prices, hoping diesel stays cheap. Look at what happened between January and June of 2022. National average diesel prices in the United States exploded from $3.78 per gallon to over $5.80 per gallon, a brutal 53% surge in 6 months. Independent operators stuck in flat-rate contracts were forced to absorb every single cent of that increase. Thousands of small courier firms saw their entire annual net profit completely wiped out, effectively paying out of their own pockets to deliver their clients' packages. Now, let's expose the silent financial drain that almost never appears in any startup business plan or financial pitch deck, the failed delivery nightmare. Here is the exact operational sequence. A driver pulls up to a residential address. He walks up the driveway with a high-value item requiring a customer signature. He knocks, waits 45 seconds, rings the bell, and gets no response. Because a signature is required, he cannot leave the package on the porch. He walks back to the van, logs the attempt on his handheld scanner, and drives to the next stop. At 6 p.m., that package goes back to your central depot. A warehouse worker scans it back into inventory, stores it overnight on a holding rack, and remanifests it for delivery the following morning. The driver loads it back into the van and attempts delivery a second time. Analyze what just happened to your unit economics. You burned fuel twice. You consumed valuable driver minutes twice. You paid warehouse labor twice. And you generated exactly zero additional revenue. Industry studies show that the average fully loaded cost of a single failed first attempt delivery in the United States is $17.20. Nationally, approximately 8% of all first attempt residential deliveries fail. In high-value e-commerce or signature-required commercial sectors, that failure rate climbs to an astonishing 20%. Let's run the math on our standard 10-van operation, completing 800 total deliveries per day. An 8% failure rate means 64 packages fail every single day. At $17.20 in wasted operational cost per failed attempt, those 64 missed deliveries burn $1,100 per day. Across a standard 250-day working year, that translates into $270,000 in unrecoverable, invisible cash losses. Think about that number. $270,000 destroyed by packages sitting in vans twice. In courier logistics, a single failed delivery attempt completely wipes out the profit margins generated by 3 successful ones. A bad week of failed deliveries isn't a minor operational headache, it is a catastrophic balance sheet event. Let's look at how revenue and expense models actually interact when you run the full financial breakdown. Suppose your 10-van fleet handles local ground deliveries, charged at an average rate of $12 per package. If each van completes 80 deliveries per day, your fleet processes 800 packages daily. At $12 per delivery, you generate $9,600 in daily gross revenue. Over a standard 250-day operating year, your gross revenue reaches $2,400,000. Now, let's subtract operating costs. Fully loaded driver labor at $30 per hour for 10 drivers working 8 hours a day costs $300,000 annually. Fuel for 10 vans running 60 miles a day at $4 per gallon eats $66,000. Commercial fleet insurance at $2,000 per van adds $20,000. Vehicle maintenance, tires, brakes, and emergency repairs average $45,000. Dispatching and administrative staff runs $60,000. Depot rent in a suburban industrial zone costs $36,000. Route optimization software, GPS tracking, and digital proof of delivery tools take $15,000. Total direct operating expenses, approximately $542,000. Subtracting $542,000 from $2,400,000 leaves a breathtaking net operating profit of $1,858,000. When prospective entrepreneurs see that $1.85 million profit figure on paper, they run out and mortgage their homes to buy cargo vans. But that entire financial projection is a dangerous fantasy. Why? Because it assumes 100% fleet utilization every van, every driver, loaded to maximum capacity, 250 days a year, with zero client churn, zero weather delays, and zero slow days. In real-world logistics, commercial fleets operate at an average utilization rate of 60% to 80%. Drop your financial model to a realistic 70% utilization rate, which is industry average, and your daily package volume falls from 800 down to 560. Annual gross revenue drops from $2.4 million down to $1.6 million. But here is the trap. Your operating costs do not drop proportionally. Commercial vehicle leases, commercial auto insurance, depot rent, software licenses, and core driver salaries are fixed expenses. Insurance is due whether your van drives 10 miles or 100 miles. Rent is due whether your depot processes 100 packages or 1,000. Your operating margins collapse instantly. And then comes the seasonal volatility of the Q4 holiday surge. Between November and December, shipping volumes regularly surge 25% to 30% above annual baselines. To handle that spike, you must lease temporary vans at inflated holiday rental rates, hire temporary drivers, and pay massive overtime. You pay those costs up front. Legacy carriers protect their margins during Q4 by slapping on demand surcharges. During the 2025-2026 holiday season, UPS applied demand surcharges ranging from $0.40 to over $2 on standard residential packages, with oversized packages incurring extra fees of $90 or more per piece. Small independent operators rarely have the contractual leverage to impose demand surcharges. They absorb the surge costs, work their fleets to the brink of collapse, and often realize that their peak season produced less profit than a standard operating month. Seeking to avoid the nightmare of finding their own corporate clients, thousands of entrepreneurs flock to Amazon's delivery service partner, DSP program, launched in 2018. Amazon pitch decks promise that an independent DSP operating 40 dedicated vans can generate $1 million to $4.5 million in annual revenue, with net profit potential between $75,000 and $300,000 per year. On paper, it looks like the ultimate turnkey business: guaranteed package volume, pre-negotiated vehicle leases, and built-in technological infrastructure. But examine the economic power balance. Amazon sets delivery pay rates unilaterally. Amazon tracks every single driver in real time using proprietary mobile software, monitoring door-to-door completion speeds, package scan rates, seatbelt click frequencies, and hard-braking metrics. If your fleet's scorecard dips, Amazon instantly slashes your daily route allocation or terminates your DSP contract altogether with minimal notice. The DSP owner carries 100% of the financial and legal liability payroll taxes, workers' comp claims, vehicle damage, driver lawsuits, and insurance risks. Amazon retains 100% of the brand ownership and pricing power. It is presented as a business partnership, but in structural economic reality, it is an extreme form of client concentration, where one corporate giant controls your survival while you fund their last-mile supply chain out of your own pocket. And if you think scaling larger solves these structural problems, look at what happened to LaserShip and OnTrack. In 2021, regional parcel carrier LaserShip, covering the US, East Coast acquired OnTrack, covering the West Coast, to forge a seamless coast-to-coast competitor to FedEx and UPS. The strategic logic seemed bulletproof. Combine two proven regional networks to win massive national e-commerce shipping accounts. Instead, the merger triggered an operational nightmare. Stitching together two fundamentally different regional logistics networks created massive friction. First attempt delivery success rates collapsed. Customer service backlogs exploded. Major retail clients fled back to FedEx and UPS. The lesson is stark. The operational economics that function at a regional scale break down violently when pushed to national scale. Expanding a logistics footprint doesn't linearly multiply profit, it exponentially multiplies operational complexity. To understand how macroeconomic shocks can instantly destroy a courier business, we must study the United Kingdom supply chain crisis of autumn 2021. It was a perfect financial storm. Pandemic lockdowns in 2020 and 2021 had halted heavy goods vehicle (HGV) driver licensing tests, creating a backlog of roughly 25,000 qualified new drivers. Concurrently, Brexit forced the departure of approximately 16,000 European Union commercial drivers who had previously sustained British supply chains. Compounding the crisis, the existing workforce was rapidly aging, with the average UK commercial driver aged 51 and over half the driver pool approaching retirement. At the peak of the crisis, the Road Haulage Association estimated a nationwide deficit of over 100,000 commercial drivers. Gas stations across Great Britain ran completely dry. Supermarket shelves stood empty. The British government had to deploy nearly 200 armed forces personnel to drive fuel tankers. Market economics responded brutally. Average UK commercial driver salaries exploded from £32,500 in 2020 to over £44,000 by 2025, a massive 35% wage surge. driven by absolute labor scarcity. Independent courier operators who had signed long-term fixed-price delivery contracts with retail clients months prior were wiped out. They were legally bound to deliver packages at pre-crisis revenue rates, while their underlying labor and fuel costs had skyrocketed by double digits. Dozens of logistics firms entered administration, not because of bad management, but because macroeconomic shocks destroyed their thin margins overnight. Now let's examine the single most expensive segment in the entire global supply chain, the last mile. The last mile refers to the movement of a package from a local sorting depot to the customer's doorstep. It sounds like the easiest part. The package has already traveled thousands of miles across oceans on cargo ships and across continents on long-haul semi-trucks. You are simply driving it the final 3 miles to someone's house. Yet, industry data proves that the last mile consistently accounts for 50% to 60% of total transportation costs across the entire logistics sector. The shortest, simplest leg of the journey costs more than all long-distance transportation combined. Why? Because of the complete collapse of consolidation efficiency. When a long-haul semi-truck transports 1,000 packages from Chicago to Dallas, it moves all 1,000 items simultaneously. Fuel, driver wages, and vehicle wear are split across 1,000 units, reducing the per-package transport cost to pennies. But when a local courier van enters a residential neighborhood to execute individual doorstep drop-offs, consolidation vanishes. Look at route density. In high-density urban zones, a driver might complete 20 stops per hour along a tight street grid. In low-density suburban or rural areas, houses are miles apart. A driver might only complete 6 stops per hour, burning significant fuel and time between every drop. In dense urban neighborhoods, the cost to execute a single doorstep delivery averages around $10. In spread-out rural areas, executing that same single doorstep delivery can cost $30, $40, or even $50. If you charge a commercial client a flat fee of $12 per package, and it costs your business $50 in driver wages and fuel to deliver it to a rural doorstep, you are not running a logistics business. You are subsidizing your client's shipping costs out of your own equity. The only antidote to the last-mile trap is volume density. A UPS driver servicing a dense suburban route can drop 150 packages per shift because stops are clustered yards apart. An independent fleet covering that same neighborhood with low volume might only drop 25 packages per shift. Same van cost, same driver wages, same insurance 1/6 of the revenue. Without massive route density, competing on price against established giants is financial suicide. Let's put brutal, honest numbers on how this plays out in real life by contrasting 2 operational scenarios for the exact same 10-van fleet. Scenario 1. Best case execution. You operate 10 vans with a strong client mix. You hold contracts with a regional e-commerce merchant, generating 300 packages daily, 2 local medical supply distributors with fixed routes, and a grocery platform providing high-density residential drops. Fleet utilization holds at 75%. First attempt delivery success reaches 94%. Every commercial contract includes a mandatory weekly EIA-indexed fuel surcharge clause from day one. Annual gross revenue at 75% utilization, $1,800,000. Total annual operating expenses, labor, fuel, insurance, rent, maintenance, tech, $1,100,000. Net operating profit, $700,000. Initial capital invested, $500,000. You recover 100% of your initial capital in under 9 months, building a highly profitable logistics enterprise. Now examine scenario 2, the reality check. Same 10 vans, same drivers, but external variables shift. International oil disruptions push diesel prices up 30%. 2 of your major contracts lack fuel surcharge clauses because clients refuse them during negotiations. Your primary e-commerce client suffers a sales slump and slashes shipping volume by 40%. 3 new drivers increase your failed delivery rate to 13%, generating daily reattempt costs at $17.20 per package. An engine overhaul costs $12,000 unplanned. A driver injury spikes your workers' comp premiums by $12,000 at renewal. Annual gross revenue under reduced volume drops to $1,100,000. Annual operating costs under fuel surges, reattempts, and repairs rise to $1,060,000. Net operating profit, a pathetic $40,000. The financial variance between a good year and a catastrophic year in a modest 10-van operation is $660,000. Same vehicles, same depot, same routes. A $660,000 swing driven purely by external variables and missing contractual protections. That is the extreme volatility underlying the Courier business model. In 1971, Frederick Smith founded Federal Express in Memphis, Tennessee, built around one revolutionary core premise: a guaranteed delivery time. Not "we will try to deliver today," but absolutely, positively by 10:30 a.m., or you pay nothing. That relentless operational discipline turned a struggling startup with 14 small aircraft into a global logistics giant. In 2024, FedEx generated over $60 billion in annual revenue, recording an operating margin of approximately 7.9%. On $60 billion in revenue, 7.9% produces a massive $4.7 billion in operating profit. But look at the inverse statistic. 92.1 cents of every single dollar FedEx collects goes straight back out the door to pay for fleet maintenance, jet fuel, labor, automated sorting hubs, and compliance infrastructure required to keep that 10. Call me kumenta RM promise. The ultimate takeaway from logistics history is clear. This business does not reward the operator who moves the most boxes. It rewards the operator who moves packages with unshakable reliability while maintaining military-grade financial discipline. The cargo van sitting in your driveway is not the business. The dynamic fuel surcharge clause you negotiated 6 months before oil prices spiked, the route optimization software saving your drivers 40 minutes per shift, the automated SMS notification system eliminating failed doorstep deliveries, the bad contract you had the courage to walk away from because the last-mile density was too poor, that is the business. Owning a courier company is not about driving. It is about making thousands of precise operational and financial decisions long before any van leaves the depot. In a good year, those decisions compound into real wealth. In a bad year, the absence of even one of them will leave you subsidizing someone else's package deliveries until your capital runs completely dry. The package is just cardboard. Everything that actually matters happens in the margins around it.